The next big upset at the 2026 Australian Open will be, make sure you're subscribed. So when it does happen, you'll hear us talk about it. And maybe we can make a prediction later on in the show as well. I am David E.J. Berger, and I am joined by my main man in Melbourne, Steve, Mr. Ace Previews himself. And Steve, I'm excited to talk today on a brand new All Surface show because you were on the grounds of Melbourne Park, and we're going to get a first-hand report. This is exciting. Welcome in.
Thank you. Yeah, it was nice to be in at Melbourne Park yesterday to take in all of the action, along with a lot of other people. I think is probably one of the key takeaways. But yeah, it was good. What do you want to know?
Well, first off, I believe you were on Rod Laver, correct? So how does how does it work? So you bought tickets for Laver. Was that? I would assume you have access to the outer courts and practice courts and things like that, and just not the other.
Yeah. So there's the reserve seat. So yeah, I was on Rod Laver yesterday. So I had Arena Sabalenka and then Carlos Alcaraz. But yeah, so basically to be able to go into the Australian Open, you can get reserve seats for Rod Laver Arena, Margaret Court Arena, and then parts of John Cain Arena as well. So they're reserve seats, but they also give you the right to be able to go out to all of the other outside courts. I think you mentioned in one of your YouTube shorts yesterday about Court 6. You can go out there. You can go to the across the practice courts, Garden Square, Grand Slam Oval. It pretty much gives you access to all the other aspects and elements that are within the grounds, of which there are a lot. And I think that's probably one of my big takeaways from yesterday and walking around is, they've certainly gone to another level in terms of, the food offerings, the places to be able to kind of, sit on the grounds and watch tennis on a screen and those sort of things. But yeah, so for me, the Rod Laver Arena, buying the tickets, bought tickets months ago. That's just a bit of a lucky dip as you end up getting. So went with that option, just because it's nice to, even if it does end up being 40 degrees or, 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit, that you've got yourself a seat. You're inside, you're largely in the shade. It just gives you that option there that, you're there, and regardless of what time you turn up, you've got a reserve seat that you can go and sit at for those two matches.
Yeah, I deal with that at Indian Wells as well. Having a stadium one seat, pretty clutch.
Yeah, and it does make a difference. And obviously, through the first couple of days, I'd seen, the reports of the massive lines to get in, to Melbourne Park, and then everything that kind of comes with it in terms of getting into other courts and, being able to access everything. So I was curious to see how that went. To be honest, to get into Melbourne Park, I entered from the John Cain Arena side, and it took about 5 minutes. Like I wouldn't have even known any different. So, entering, probably down to what you've got on the screen there to the, bottom right of the screen is where we entered. But yeah, so as you can see, there's lots of courts, lots of opportunities for people to be able to kind of sit and, have something to eat, have something to drink, and enjoy watching tennis on screens, or wandering around to see all the activations that they have across the facilities. But
Steve, I don't want to upend you in your thought flow here, but is this Batman Avenue?
It is.
That's amazing.
So for me, I'd say just to the right of screen here is where I entered in from. So just probably middle of the screen now, where that Grand Slam Oval entrance things just popped up. So I went in there, and it took, as I said, about 5 minutes. I think what's happening is there's a lot of people who are obviously Lots of people in Melbourne to be able to come and enjoy the Australian Open. I think for the most part, they end up staying in the city. So they have city accommodation, and I think they all kind of block to the entrance that kind of feeds down from the main train station in the city. So yeah, as you can see, like if you look over all the kind of orange across the grounds and stuff, there's a lot of places to be able to kind of walk around and sit. If you keep going up to the top left, there's Garden Square, which keeps kind of growing bigger and bigger every year. So there's a whole new section there with new restaurants and all the things that you can check out there. And I think that probably brings me maybe to the point. I don't know if it's a rant.
Well, hold on.
But-
I'll share this tab instead because I believe this is where you're headed.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't see. I haven't got back to Ben. You can see my post down there. This is the first reply. So Ben Rothenberg was talking about, so overcrowding is a serious issue if you're attending this Australian Open as a tennis fan who wants to watch tennis. So there were long unmoving queues on the outside courts, even ones without star players of note. So he was trying to see, Lerner versus Shevchenko and gave up because it's as his reply at the bottom was there, the queue just didn't move for 15 minutes. So on a lot of those courts, you can get a pass out, like if you need to go to the bathroom or whatever you need to do to then come back. So people aren't really giving up seats because it is so competitive to find seats. And it did get me thinking, while I was in there, and that the way it felt for me, particularly through, and I think this is the case for a lot of the first week of the tournament, is the outside courts just get absolutely smashed with people because there is no third match on all of the main courts that are ticketed. So you'll probably remember a couple of years ago, Andy Murray played Tanazi Kokkinakis and it finished at like 3:30 in the morning because one of the day session matches went long, so then the night session started later and everyone kicked up a massive fuss about it, basically, because we can't have late finishes. We want to look after the players, we want to look after the fans. So how the Australian Open has taken that on board is they've taken a match away from the day session for each of the main courts. So if you went to the tennis 5 years ago, you would be sitting on a day session and you'd have 3 matches. It starts at 11. You'd have 3 matches in the day. Might be a men's and 2 women's on some courts, or you're just getting 3 matches. So what that meant was, say, you had Alexander Zverev play a 5-setter in round 1 just because that's the style he plays sometimes. It meant that the night session didn't start until 9 p.m. And then if you have, women's match and then another 5-setter, you're talking really, really late. But what happens the other way is you get matches where Arina Sabalenka plays on center court and she's done in just over an hour. And then, maybe Yannick Sinner or someone will go on and play and they're done in an hour and a half. And all of a sudden across those courts, you've got 15 to 20,000 people who have paid a lot of money to watch tennis, who are going to then feed out to these outside courts as well to watch more tennis because they haven't seen much. The other issue is that it costs more now to go and see 2 matches than it used to see 3. And it just felt like yesterday when...
because of course.
Yeah. And then it just felt like yesterday, Alcaraz finished up on Rod Laver Arena about 4:30 p.m. And then you've got everyone who was in Rod Laver Arena, who's hanging around, is going out to these smaller outdoor courts that aren't ticketed in any way, shape, or form. And it just gets messy. And it's for me, as I said, I was happy to go and pay for a Rod Laver Arena ticket. The tennis is only here once a year. I'm happy to pay a little bit more to go and kind of lock in that seat. But there is just no desire. I could think of nothing worse than going to the Australian Open on a grand this year to just have to fight. I think the only way you can possibly do it is get there when gates open, yourself on a court for the entire day and don't budge. basically. It was just walking around and seeing that push kind of late in the day, and then also when the evening session and ground passes kind of flock in as well. It just feels like the Australian Open has done so much to expand everything on the grounds that is not tennis, that has led them to be able to let more people in. But then the issue is when you have, across a day and night session, 100,000 people maybe that want to watch tennis because they're at the tennis, there's not actually the ability for them to do that. Round one has been spread across 3 days and barely getting more than two or three matches on a court. So everyone's kind of fighting tooth and nail to get to these matches, and they've upped the number of people who can get in because the space is more expansive now. So they're allowed to. I think for me, I just wouldn't even contemplate going in on a ground pass in week one. It's just, it doesn't feel worth it. And Ben's right, I think, in terms of what he's saying and the space. And I can't remember who it was that mentioned it earlier. Like, it feels more like a festival than it does a tennis tournament now. And if that's the way that they want to go with it, then that's fine. And for that to happen, though, you need, of those 100,000 people, you need tens of thousands of those people to not want to watch any tennis. Because otherwise, you're going to get stuck, because there's only a handful of matches on at a time at the moment. And there's a lot of people in that area who are paying a fair chunk of money who are going, maybe I should watch some tennis while I'm here. But no one's going to line up for, seeing some of the lines and seeing things not budging, then you have no idea or concept of, how long you're going to have to wait. And, the last thing you want to actually do is probably spend all your money and then stand in a line all day. And it just felt like that was the case with so many courts. And they've got these plans to, make some courts bigger and things in the years ahead. But for me, like, as someone who's been to the Australian Open every year for the last 25 years, I miss how it was when they prioritized tennis. I think it's probably it used to be kind of a time ago, like, how exciting, we've got, the Australian Open's around the corner and it's great. And then you get there and it's packed. And sure, like, you can go and sit on Garden Square and watch it up on a big screen, but that's what people have to do because you can't actually get in and physically watch it. So people they're paying to eat and drink out on the grass and watch it on a screen. For me personally, like, I'm probably at the age now where, I can get up on my TV or phone any of the courts anytime and watch it live. Like, I'm probably at that point now, if it's that hard to get in and watch. And I think for me, probably in the past too, and Ben's right, like, I'd probably go and watch Lerner versus Shevchenko because it was probably easier to get into. But then now you're getting those matches and they're that difficult to get into. Like, and you look at Iala the other day on court 6, and there was a line for hours and thousands of people for a court that has, a couple of hundred seats. I think it's gone too far the other way now. I'm sure it's making a hell of a lot of money this year, and I can understand why the players are probably wanting their fair share, but it feels like the I don't know, it's not like the goodwill, like the tennis culture that kind of comes with going to the Australian Open feels, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's on its way. It just doesn't feel the same as someone who lives in Melbourne, has been every year, and actually, follows the tour year round.
Yeah, I think it's a gift and a curse, right? Because on the one hand, tennis as a sport, they need the coverage, the eyeballs, the pathways to get in front of people that activations bring. But on the flip side, you're seeing some of the side effects of when that happens. And it's happening here in Indian Wells as well. By the way, Steve, you mentioned the lack of play. I dealt with that, I believe it was last year on the Saturday when Mickelson quit after or retired after the first in the first set versus Medvedev, and then Tsitsipas dusted Berrettini really quickly, and the outer courts were packed because Stadium One was done and dusted by like the first 2 hours in the day. And this year, we're seeing changes in terms of the ticketing. I saw that now, your Stadium One pass used to be able to go to Stadium Two, and your grounds pass got you into Stadium Two as well, into some of the free seating there. All gone. Now you need a true Stadium Two pass. So we're going to see some of the stuff you're talking about taking place here in the desert. The one good thing about Indian Wells, though, for as opposed to Melbourne, is it's in the middle of nowhere. So during the week, you're fine to go. It's not going to be an issue. It's just that first weekend, I think we're going to see some of the overcrowding that you're seeing now at the AO, which is I think I love all the excitement and the buzz, and I think it's the Australian Open is breaking through in a way culturally that we probably haven't seen since peak Rafa and peak Federer. Definitely, I think the most excitement since post pandemic. So yeah, gift and the curse, I think, right now for tennis where it's at.
Yeah, and I think just with a couple of things, maybe it's the execution of how it all kind of came together. That you saw in the lead up, there was this, posts on, this new, the courtside bar. I think it is that's off and around, kind of courts 6 and 7 and those kind of outside courts. And there's like a walking kind of platform that goes high, so you can kind of walk along and you can see tennis off to one side and the other as you kind of walk from the stairs from bar across to some of the other courts. Anyway, I kind of just wandered around there just before I went into Rod Laver Arena and, got up the stairs, looked at the bar. I went to walk to the other side of the platform and there's a security guard sitting there saying you can't go across there. So what's ended up happening is the platform runs between two courts, like between the baselines of two courts. So you're right in the eye line. So no one's allowed to move between while play's going on. So they've used it as a look at all this stuff you might be able to see and how you can quickly cut through here kind of while the tennis is on. And then now it's like, well, actually you can't because you're right in someone's eye line when they're trying to hit a serve or play a forehand because you're, walking past the scoreboard that's directly behind the back of the court. So it's just those things. It just seems like execution. Like some things look really great, and then reality kind of hits, and I don't know. It didn't feel like I'm not itching to go back. I have John Cain Arena tickets for the Friday night. Again, a reserve seat. But it's I feel like they've used the let's get rid of the late nights to stretch everything else out, and I think it's ruined. It might be great for the players not finishing at 4 a.m., but it has definitely impacted the fan experience.
Well, I feel like maybe we just keep it to one topic today because I felt like that was a really solid take on your experience in Melbourne. Well, how about one more question about your day? What was the most exciting point you watched?
Well, I saw this young player. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Carlos Alcaraz.
I have heard of him.
Yeah. You know what? I think the other thing when you think to go and buy kind of tickets to early matches is you don't want to sit there and watch the best players win 2-2 in 90 minutes or along those lines. But Yannick Hanfmann put in a really, really great performance yesterday against Alcaraz and really tested him. The conditions were really swirly, and it took Alcaraz probably about a set to find his range. But yeah, it was. There was a handful of points in that. Some of the retrieval skills of Alcaraz is just absolutely insane. But before we do wrap up, I have a question back to you in terms of your lead in to this episode is what's going to be the upset or what's going to be the key thing for the
I was gonna round to the finish with that, and I'm gonna go with Jovic over Paulini. We've talked about on the Draw Show in terms of our questioning of her kind of match in, match out, even though she has been so solid the last couple of years. And I think we see a young gun upend a stalwart here.
I don't disagree with you on that one. My one is I think we might see a little bit of carnage in the next kind of 4 to 5 days.
It's been pretty chalky. Been chalky.
Yeah, I think the carnage might come. I'm just trying to get something to load, which this is for people who are in Australia. The Bureau of Meteorology app is just gone terrible. They've spent millions of dollars on it, and it's arguably worse than it used to be. It's going to get hot in the next couple of days. So Saturday. So the players who play today, who will play again on Saturday, it's going to hit 39 degrees, which is, what's that? That's over 100 for you guys, isn't it? Should have a converter up. And sunny. So we might need to go on bulb watch, because it is going to get hot. So that's probably what I think about. Particularly some of the.
First of all, how dare you think I don't have the weather up? Yeah, 100 degrees. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. And then
reprieve today, because I don't think it's supposed to hit 70. I think it'll be over 70, like in the sun. Probably feels like temp, but it's supposed to be a pretty moderate day today. But man, next week, 103. Woo!
Yeah, it's actually, the forecast has changed slightly, I think, and it's edging towards kind of 105, 106. So it is, we're hitting 40 degrees. So someone's getting day session on Rod Laver Arena, and it turned into a sauna. So this is where you think, we've had the likes of, Felix Auger-Aliassime cramping in, the third set in round one on, it was a warm day, but it's not that hot. I think we might see some surprises. I think we're going to see a real physical test. And I think the one I would like to see, and look, obviously they're both going to have to win today. But I think is Elliot Spitzeri, if he were to win today, he would play Yannick Sinner, would he not? In a third round. I think that would be a nice kind of test if that were to maybe fall. I feel like Yannick would probably ask for night session, but if that were to eventuate, I think that would be a nice.
I gotta be honest, Steve. I can't think of a worse matchup for Elliot Spitzeri than the Italian Yannick Sinner.
Or James Duckworth. It could be James Duckworth. Well done to James on a comeback on one of the on court 6 the other day. It was his birthday yesterday, and his present today is to face Yannick Sinner in the second round. So good luck to James on that front.
If Spitzeri wins 3 games in one set, I will be shocked.
Well, maybe he needs it to be closer to 110, 115 degrees potentially. But
I will say you're okay. You're to your point about the weather. Fair enough with Yannick Sinner. He could pull up blame. We have seen that.
I think that weather can just bring out, the ability to cause a little bit of chaos. Maybe a player not expected to win takes a first set tie break in 70, 75 minutes, and all of a sudden, you've got those top players thinking, or even a Medvedev or someone along those lines thinking, I've got to play 2 to 3 hours of great tennis still just to get to the finish line as quick as possible. I think there's just that ability there with that weather and how it's shaping up. There's the potential for a little bit of chaos, I think.
And I think order of play could heavily factor into that chaos.
Absolutely. Might make it easy to get a seat if you're at the tennis.
That's true. Also, I want to do a tease, Steve. I will be going to the San Diego Challenger. It's actually a mixed WTA and ATP 100 event at the San Diego Open. I will be going down there to cover it. And Sebastian Corda just took a wild card, so we have a new headliner down there as well. So, yeah, drop a comment if there's anything you want me to check out or talk about at the event. But I will be down there next week for some coverage for the All Surface show, and I'll be tweeting it. I'll do some videos and some other content as well. Very excited, Steve.
Fantastic. Looking forward to seeing it all from the other side of the world down here on the All Surface Media YouTube channel and our various outlets. So make sure you are subscribed, notification. Thanks to those people who do like these, hit the like button on these episodes and help us with the YouTube algorithm. I know I didn't give you a clear answer in terms of what my upset or thought might be over the next couple of days, but one maybe to keep an eye on is Cam Norrie against Alexander Zverev. I reckon that has the makings of what could be a really interesting match.
Cam Norrie looked pretty good last night against Nava. Well, in the first set, he looked great. And then he pretty much played a 50-50 match for the next 3 sets. But painting lines.
Yeah, and even painted lines. So obviously they went off for a rain delay for, was it about half an hour at least, maybe 45 minutes, halfway through that 4th set tiebreak. And just got to the finish line. I think that was his all he wanted to do was win. He had to win 3 points, I think it was, from 4-3 up in the tiebreak. And then, as you said, painting lines. I think he found 2 or 3 lines in the match point at 6-5 alone. It was tough viewing, I think, for Nava. But yeah, it's one of those ones that performance I think that Cam can build on. And I think with Alexander Zverev calling the trainer a couple of times in the 4th set last night as well. Just one maybe to keep an eye out for.
There we go. Do subscribe, comment, like. People are stingy with the likes. They hate giving likes, but maybe those will pick up one day. Until next time, see you on the court.